Hello everyone, it's Blaze, and welcome to a new MangaKamen video. How to ruin your protagonist. Now, last time we watched one of theirs was a Yugioh video, if I'm not mistaken, so honestly I'm kind of interested in how to ruin your protagonist. This is info for me to learn in the future, so without delay, let's start this thing.
So for a long time, we often talk villains on this channel, and that's not going to change for this year, trust me on that folks. But I think we should talk about the heroes of stories too. Now, I've talked about terrible protagonists before on the channel, and while this will be a branch off of that video, I think it's better to really look into why some of the characters can and will be quote-unquote ruined. Obviously, I'm only speaking for myself, so it's an opinion piece, but I think we take a little time and really dive into the issues with protagonists that can get ruined. Really talk about some of the more common ways a character can be ruined and focused on the main protagonist. For the most part. I'm MangaKamen, and let's begin. Spoilers for the following series. It's a given that when you I'm MangaKamen, and let's begin. Spoilers.
Let's see. Devil May Cry series, Has Been Hotel, Pokemon anime, Insomniac Spider-Man games, Dead Rising series, Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5. Now, I've heard controversy with the Has Been Hotel stuff and how terrible written it is, which is why I just straight up stopped watching the wow, I'm forgetting its name. Basically the spin-off. I'm sure I'll remember it sooner or later, but yeah, I just straight up stopped watching it after that, because after episode 9, because it was just dog shit. Oh, Hell of a Boss, that's what it was. And we already know what the problem is with Arc 5. I've seen plenty of critiques on that, but the Pokemon anime, that one I'm interested in. So that delay.
The following series. It's a given that when you really think about characters, especially protagonists, you need to understand a few things about them. Their roles, their actions, and most importantly, their personalities. Especially when there's an already established characterization for your protagonist. And as such, let's talk about Dante. Fuck you. No, not that one. Not Dante. Not today. We're talking about...
That's just a piece of crap.
This is probably an example that's a lot older than some of my audience, which certainly puts me in the right mood for the best time of my life, but let's set the stage first. You're Capcom. It's the year 1999. With the looming threat of the Y2K bug over the horizon and people clamoring over the success of Resident Evil 2, you get the big man, Hideki Kamiya, to be the director for an early version of Resident Evil 4. Too bad you made a protagonist too cool to fight zombies, and you put a white wig on him, but you managed to make something so amazing that it created its own IP. Am I going too fast for you?
No.
Whoa, slow down.
What the hell? Is there a motorcycle head?
And you managed to create probably one of the coolest protagonists in gaming, Dante, a demon slayer with a cool attitude and a mouth to boot.
Are you the human, the son of Sparta who challenges the darkness for this?
Block off, Featherface.
Okay, the guy's cheesier than a mozzarella stick on a cheese pizza, and the voice acting at times...
I should have been the one to fill your dark soul with light!
It is the stuff of legends. But you manage to get yourself a real hit, and the higher-ups at Capcom think that's a great idea to greenlight a sequel. Hooray! Only they decide not to get Kamiya or the entire team who made the first game involved at all. Wait,
why?
What? Now, we can talk about all the issues that are with the game because of the decision.
Why did they do that?
The infamous infested chopper.
What the hell?
Someone killed me. But I've already made a video on that, which you guys should totally check out. And for the purpose of this video, let's talk about the characterization of Dante in this game, and frankly...
That's just a piece of crap.
According to some articles, there was an unknown producer who effectively hated Dante's wisecracking nature in the first game and wanted a more mature and serious version of the character. Out of curiosity, what did critics think of DMC2 at the time?
Extended Play gives Devil May Cry a stylistic 4 out of 5.
Oh, Adam Sessler Next Play. I will never like you. Now, I'm not opposed to having more mature and serious versions of Dante. Sure, I like it when Dante's a lot more playful and cool.
Oh, that was cool.
But it's not like you can't have a more serious Dante take the stage for the property. Hell, while I don't find it to be the best representation of DMC, the original 2007 anime did an excellent job of showcasing that kind of Dante, for the most part. DMC 2 though, well, a lot of people will tell you this version of Dante is more depressed, and I have to tell you, I don't get how or why. I feel like it's due to the fact that there's a misunderstanding of Dante's character in DMC 1, but there's also the fact that Dante barely speaks in this game. Legitimately, if you look at the cutscenes on YouTube, and I'm just talking about the Dante side, the amount of cutscenes rounds up to about 25 minutes, and that's being very generous since that includes a lot of times where Dante just jumps out of buildings. Dante, for the most part, doesn't speak, but when he does,
Really?
he doesn't sound depressed. If anything, he sounds bored.
Looks like it's your lucky day. Did you find what you were looking for?
Yes.
Yeah, he sounds a bit bored.
What are you doing, Granny? Crap like that doesn't interest me.
It feels like he's lacking personality rather than being depressed. Like the voice actor, Matthew Kaminsky, phoned it in. Even when he supposedly drops a hard line, it lacks emotion.
You sweet step?
A false coin for a false god.
It doesn't come off as depressive Dante to me. It comes off as a misunderstanding how the character's supposed to act and sound like, because, frankly, with how Capcom likes to play with the continuity of this series, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Like, for those who don't know, initially DMC 2 was set to be the last game in the DMC timeline. But
Really?
with DMC 5 now here, it's been placed before DMC 4. It had a history of DMC going on it, with 2 now following the DMC anime. And it doesn't
Wait,
really
what?
make a lot of sense, especially when you consider the actual anime. You had Dante being more akin to his DMC 3 counterpart, just a bit more mature and subdued, but still having that emotional element that allows him to know when to start taking things seriously. That's what I think DMC 2 Dante should have been. And I can say this because of the trademark
What is
line
that
that
timeline?
Dante says.
That's confusing.
And jackpot.
A line that was missing in DMC 2 but came back in DMC 5. Now, obviously, people who know the series will point out that there's a soundtrack in DMC 2 that plays during the final boss that's named after Jackpot, but it seems more hollow than anything. To me, that line represented not only a sign of triumph, but also a playful manner that represented Dante's humanity, and something that, honestly, he should say. And that's why I think it falls on a misunderstanding of Dante's character in the second game, even though most of his character doesn't really exist in it.
Crap like that doesn't interest me.
Still, since then, it would appear that the mainline Devil May Cry seems to have learned from the mistakes of DMC2, and for the most part, Dante as a character retained his charm and iconic swagger. Like I said, though, for the most part.
Yeah.
What was Charlie doing in the
Let's
background
go all
there?
the way to
I have a dream. I'm here to tell.
How many times do we
Relearning
have to
lesson
teach you
one.
this lesson, old man?
The point of a character is to have them develop, learning lessons and grow from the flaws they have. However, it can be a bit of an oddity and annoyance when similar lessons are retaught, especially when it feels like backtracking for the same character. And there are 2 characters that I feel like can really exemplify this. But we'll start with an example that I think most people will know about, especially considering my channel.
Pokemon, let's go. Love this show.
No,
Wait, what?
permission not granted.
Oh no, somebody's going to get an email.
Damn you, YouTube! Anyway, if you're not familiar with the Pokemon
You better
anime,
not have
well,
got me.
I don't know why you're on this channel, but one of the longest running problems with the anime, at least to me, would be the former main protagonist, Ash Ketchum. I can honestly just stop with the section on Ash, because I'm sure there are a number of people who know what I'm talking about. But since I need to get some minutes on the board,
Mainly in
and
Gen
I know
5.
some people like listening to my melodic voice, let's talk about it either way. Yes, Ash Ketchum, the forever 10-year-old who can apparently carry logs with his toothpick arms. For decades, this kid has been searching far and wide to become the greatest that ever was. But the problem with Ash was, well, stagnation. Ash in the beginning of the anime was a young man who was on a journey. He was a rookie trainer who didn't know what he was doing most of the time, and he had that underdog element to him. Then in the Johto anime, Ash was a little bit more confident, and while he struggled and lost in both leagues, he was at the very least competent. And he took that experience in the Gen 3 and 4 anime, even acting as a mentor for other characters, i.e.
Then Gen
May and
5.
Vaughn. And in Gen 4, Ash managed to do a lot of new things to improve. One example would be the counter shield technique which he developed, which the show's credit they did bring back eventually, but my point is that Ash actually gained experience and really learned. But then Gen 5 happened, and Ash was effectively reset. And at the same time, so was Pikachu, making basic mistakes, being an idiot at times, losing to a Snivy, and, well, the company he kept wasn't all that charming either.
You don't get it. You act like a little kid. If you want to catch it, you've got to battle it.
And as such, Ash lost whatever basic experience he had before, and a lot of the time he would be
Yeah,
going
it
through
really
the same basic
sucks.
journey again and again. Sometimes he would relearn lessons, he didn't really develop as a character, and wouldn't be until on Lola that Ash would become an actual champion. Though, and I am going to be fair here, Ash at the very least did get back to snuff when it came to Kalos. And in 2023, when Ash finally retired from the anime, a new cast was brought in for the current Pokemon anime, which I enjoy for the most part, except for Roy, but whatever. To me, though,
Really?
it felt like Ash
Don't like Roy?
overstayed his tenure in the anime. I understand Ash is iconic. I mean, the kid did die to Mewtwo and Mew and then got brought back to life. But I've always been a fan of having a new journey and protagonist for a long-running series. Yu-Gi-Oh!, Kamen Rider, Super Sentai, hell, even the games like
Yeah, I
Final Fantasy did
do prefer
this.
that.
And there's an argument in several examples where having the same protagonist doesn't have this issue. But I'd argue that we still see some evolution of the character and not retread things. And to be fair, I'm not arguing Ash is a bad character because he loses. I'm arguing that Ash effectively resets when he enters a new region. With a Pikachu at this point shouldn't be losing battles when it should be super experienced. It's effectively a cheap plot device just to make sure Ash doesn't stomp on the competition, giving him a challenge and introducing more rival characters. Now there is an argument to be made that if you did just use the player characters from the games, you'd effectively have the same problem. Just Ash in a different outfit and wig. But if I could sidetrack a little bit, you need only look towards the Pokemon Adventures manga, which took the characters from the games and at the very least gave them their own identity and made them stand out. Not to go too indefinite, but let's look towards the protagonists of Black and White 2 adventures, Blake and Whitley. Blake is being a member of the
Whitley?
International Police tasked with trying to find the remnants of Team Plasma, and Whitley being a former member of Team Plasma as well. So
What
to
the
me, it's
hell are
not a
those
matter of
names?
following the same path that Ash took. It's more or less
Oh,
the
Blake
writers of
makes
the
sense.
anime really didn't do much to shake up the formula for a number of the regions. Now, obviously, that's not going to be true for the entire series, so I'm not trying to generalize too terribly, but can be rather annoying when a protagonist has to learn the same lessons or makes mistakes that reasonably they shouldn't be making when they've been doing this for years at this point. Which is a nice segue to my next example.
Welcome to hell!
You know, and I don't know
Has
why,
been
but a lot
Hotel.
of people assume that I'd be done talking about the Spindle Horse animations. I will admit that I typically do not try to do too much about the series of Hell, the Boss, and Hazbin Hotel, because I don't want to milk
Hopefully
the
I don't get
series.
copyright
I
from
am
this.
aiming to do less about these topics this year, but I still want to make some videos, like case in point. Let's talk about Charlie.
I have a dream.
No.
I'm here to tell.
What the hell is this?
Now, before we get in on this, I'm aware that Hazbin Hotel is an ongoing series, and there's always going to be the chance that my complaints will be addressed in the next season. I mean, a lot of my Help a Boss videos have kind of taught me that I shouldn't expect too much in that regard, but then again, I'm not going to complain about that. Rather, let's complain about Charlie.
Video editor reaction.
Baby,
Not that Charlie.
That's what I've been waiting for. That's what it's all about.
Not
The
this
thing
Charlie.
that makes Charlie a potentially ruined protagonist to me is that in Season 2, she doesn't really learn from the mistakes she's already made and ultimately making the job for the main antagonist easier than it should be. Let's take one of the biggest examples. In Episode 3 of Season 2, Charlie is the one to put out the idea to redeem a character in front of the antagonist to prove that they can be going to heaven. For those who are not familiar with the series, the ultimate goal of Charlie is to find a way to redeem sinners out of hell and into heaven. And the first episode of the new season, Charlie gets confirmation that is indeed possible since another character did redeem himself in the last season, but she has no idea how it's done. And there's a lot of skepticism that even a process is possible, since it's hell. And people don't really believe redemption and getting up into the good place. They're on the fact that the two antagonists are at the hotel who are actively trying to sabotage her efforts, and you got the making of a good time. But it's kind of dumb for her to make the suggestion that she would prove that redemption would be possible herself, and even more so that you consider the character she wants to redeem. Angel has been a subject of redemption who Charlie has
Seriously?
been failing to redeem for a long time, and again, she does not know how this works. Now, if the antagonist were the one to make the suggestion, pushing Charlie to do this and playing on the insecurity that she has in the subject, then I can see this being a much stronger writing choice. Even more so, considering that Angel is a bit of a mole in this situation, it would make things a lot more interesting. Otherwise, this is just self-sabotage. And here's the thing. Characters make mistakes. That's pretty much a more humanistic understanding of a character, because it sometimes really feels like people are going to need a few smacks upside the head to get that lesson to sink in. The problem is that Charlie is the main character, I think. And the fact that I have to say that kind of gives me flashbacks to another series that I've criticized in the past. Ideally, you want your main character to be the one who moves the plot or to go against the tide of changes. However, with Charlie, especially in this season, she basically failed, which in turn helped the antagonist of the show and kind of got sidelined until the end when she got lucky and saved the day. Charlie kept throwing herself into the same mistakes. Like, I did bring up the fact that the episode 3 she invited the antagonists, Rocket, Vox, she invited the TV-headed baddie into the hotel. Then, in the very next episode, she goes into a talk show to be interviewed, which is owned by Vox. I'm not sure how the pilot of the show ties in, because it's really weird with Spindlehorse's pilots, but Charlie's been on this show with the same host, and they clearly weren't going to be giving her a break, especially since she doesn't have proof of redemption to show others. I think what makes this worse is that the other characters bring up how Charlie shouldn't be trusting of Vox and not go on TV again, and she just ignores it. Which I can't say I don't blame her to some degree, because they don't actually explain why it's a bad idea, like, we don't have proof of this, or we don't know how Pentious redeemed himself. Most we know is he died and went to heaven. And it really feels like Charlie is more of an anchor that holds the plot down than actually helping it go forward. Charlie is a flawed character, but being a flawed character isn't the issue. It's the fact that she doesn't really seem to learn from her mistakes, even when something that blew up in her face happened in the previous episode. Now, I will say again, I am not saying this is definitive critique of the character or the series. Season 3 is a thing that will happen in the future, and if they manage to improve upon these, well, that's one kind of crow I'll gladly eat. Let's talk about Flanderization.
Ned Flanders!
I will say, from that little part, I was kind of silent because I didn't know too much about the Hell of a Boss stuff, and ooh boy, Charlie, you were an idiot. This is why I basically just stopped caring about this Spindlehorse stuff, because they clearly don't understand what the hell how to write. Their writing team is clearly overworked, underpaid, and just straight up don't know what the hell they're doing, because it is just bad at this point. Oh boy, I feel sorry for them. The higher-ups are making them do this shit, so...
If you're not familiar with Flanderization, it's a process where a character's subtle diverse traits slowly creep up and turn the character into a one-dimensional caricature of itself. The name gives it away. It's based on the Simpsons character Ned Flanders, who originally was a well-rounded neighbor who devolved into a religious fanatic at one point. There are people who say this can only really happen in a long-running series,
is that how it started?
I don't really agree with that notion, especially in today's media landscape. And I've got two examples, and one of them would be...
You ever get to relax?
Well, we're getting ahead of ourselves, so we need to go back.
I've covered wars, you know.
Frank West. Just saying that name and what I'm talking about with this chapter, I'm sure a lot of people would exactly know what I'm talking about.
Dead Rising.
Vic, I forgive you. This is way better than mini golf.
Wow. Little cowards, don't you think?
They're just zombies, Vic.
Frank West, the main character of the Dead Rising series, the star of most of the games, and a photojournalist was sent to the city of Willamette to uncover the secrets of a zombie outbreak. He was an older character, not your traditional video game main character,
stuff from 4.
especially from Japan. He was gruff, he was old, but he was also serious. Frank West was honestly kind of a reserved character who did have his moments of humor, but they were mostly cold and sarcastic. But he still wanted to care about helping people, even the people who were behind the outbreak.
Why was your meat so much more important to you than human life? Why? Why did my people have to die to feed your fat bellies?
That doesn't excuse what you've done.
Why is Chuck Green in here?
But I promise, the Seneca Beza story will be told.
He was a man of ethics, but still had a sense of humor to him.
I'm going to Uranus Zone!
Sure, the guy was after fame and fortune, that's why he got into the game, but he still had a good side to him. Of course, then they decided to bring him back to the actual canon for Dead Rising 4.
He's back. That's why we have our hashtag Frank's back.
Okay, Frank's back. Frank is back. Frank is cooler, he's tougher, a little wiser, but he's still Frank.
Frank's mellowed with age now. He's 16 years older, he's 54, he's still Frank. But, you know, his sense of humor is better.
It'll be fine. You need to relax.
Yeah, she says before the screaming starts.
Ugh.
You messed with my camera again, right?
You're a quick one.
That's what she said.
Look, I get it to an extent. 16 years is a long time for a fictional character, and I'm not going to be a static being, but...
you know, we think we've really captured what we really wanted Frank to be all along.
What are you doing?
What the hell?
I feel like there's a mighty big disconnect on what these developers or Capcom at the time thought this character was.
Why I love Frank West? He has the biggest balls I've ever seen of any game character.
That's an interesting choice of words. And it's not like you can't actually have a Flanderized character work. It's a rarity, but sometimes what if stories do actually happen in media with pre-established characters. And Off the Record is a great example of that. Because while Frank is a fading star with a lot more snark to him, It feels more natural since he's become more jaded because of experiences. But even then, he's usually saying one-liners, especially after beating psychopaths.
Someone with a camera.
Uh-oh.
If Adam was your brother, I'd hate to meet your sister.
But to me, it's more
Damn.
forgiving because it's a more comical game. It's a what-if story, and it's not as annoying as, well...
You know, it's just not a real apocalypse without at least a few whack jobs.
Dead Rising 4, on the other hand, it's the canonical conclusion of Frank, and they effectively made the character a parody of himself.
But talking to a lot of the fans, they wanted to see where Frank was going to go, and how was he going to mature, and how was his story going to change. And so we went with someone new, and everyone that plays the game loves what Frank has become. They love his dialogue. The chemistry between Frank and all the new people and the survivors is amazing, because Frank's had a pretty lousy life, and the things that he says in this game.
The character comes off as being Flanderized, and it didn't help that the game itself was, well...
buggy as hell.
It had its own set of issues. Of course, there's another character we can talk about with this subject.
Let's get toxic!
I'm a huge fan of Yu-Gi-Oh! As if the tons of videos on the subject didn't give that away. And one of the biggest disappointments to me of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Franchise was the process of Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5 going down the drain. Again, a topic
great.
I've done
Season 2 and
before,
3,
but for this video
terrible.
I wanted to dive into the main character of the show, Yuya Sakaki.
A world filled with happiness and joy. Your buddies took it all away.
Stuff happens.
I've always been conflicted as Yuya as a main character, because there are things I like about the premise of this entertainment duelist, but at the same time, how the writers botch the character is what makes me dislike him. Yuya's goal, ultimately, is to be the best entertainer wielding a duel disc, bringing smiles to the audience of the world, and it's something that he does consistently, showing that he can still kick ass with cards, all the while showcasing entertainer's mindset, putting on a show, as it were. And honestly, I love that. As a content creator, I feel like it's something for me to aspire as well, providing content for you all to watch, while that entertaining give you something to chew on. At least that's my goal as a YouTube content creator.
Yeah,
and
please
to
like
be
and
frank,
subscribe to
concerning the
Israel.
events of Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5, I felt for a good portion of this mentality, smiling even in the darkest of times was a good message for anyone who is making content. The big issue, though, was that the writers of the show effectively finished off Yuya's arc early, and had him spiraling around until it effectively became a redundant to the point of Flanderizing his character. So a little groundwork. The reason why Yuya is so gung-ho about bringing smiles to people through his dueling, it's because his father was an entertainment duelist that inspired a ton of people to follow in his footsteps, his son included. It's a dynamic character motivation where a son wants to go into the same footsteps as his father, but with him effectively creating a new summoning mechanic, pendulum summoning. I can hear the voices of countless Yu-Gi-Oh! Players of this game raging out at that.
Oh, this poor dude. Jeez!
So he's trying to make his own path at the same time. Throw in the fact that there's
was
a
that
dimensional war that's using a card game to basically destroy cities and turn people into cards, effectively killing them. You at least have an interesting premise here. Eventually, after the trip to the Synchro arc, defeating the Master of Faster, Jack Atlas, Yuya showcased that despite all the tensions between the commoners and elites in the Synchro dimension, there was still a chance to make people smile. And as such, after seeing his dueling can in fact bring peace and smiles, Yuya realizes that dueling is serious as well because of that. But after that, Yuya spirals around. To preface, one thing that Yuya does is question his goals and motivation, which, honestly speaking, is refreshing to say considering that anime typically doesn't have its characters to stop and think, maybe I'm the baddie here. What I think would have been best for Yuya is that his ideals clash with his reality, but actually evolve his mindset while keeping the core of his ideals, knowing that there's a time and place for smiles or being serious. But no, instead he forces the cult of smiles down the throats of others. Have you subscribed to the Church of Smile World?
No.
What? People are effectively being killed and we need to take this seriously. No way! You need to smile, boy! I've always been of the mindset that even in the darkest times, you need to be able to smile to perk yourself up and to inspire hope. But trying to make everyone smile in a serious situation isn't going to save your ass all the time. And what's worse is that Yuya's ideology is effectively a virus, converting people to his ideology after a duel or two. And I'm talking about characters who have effectively been indoctrinated since they were young, raised to despise people simply because they play Xyz cards. Which, hey, fair enough, I can name a few people who despise that mechanic in Yu-Gi-Oh! Too. Oh, and Also, war. War is bad. For example, there's a duel
Very
that
bad.
happens later on where Yugioh gets attacked by what's effectively dual assassins, the Tyler sisters. Cold-hearted sisters who effectively were secret weapons to take down duelists that were troublesome for the main bad guys. One duel later and poof, they're now fans of his. It's almost like the comical stereotype of a cult.
Excuse me, are y'all with the cult?
We're not a cult. We're an organization that promotes love and...
Yeah, this is it.
With Tomato Head protagonist being the leader here. And what's worse is that Yugioh effectively becomes a puppet on the writer's strings, meaning he can't grow or change after the synchro arc. He's still the same young man who's afraid of the power that's in him and is insistent that his way is right, with none of the characters being able to convince Yugioh that this is the wrong way to go about things. There's also the fact that there's never a character who actually challenges him on it, and we've never got a reason as to why he is right, he just is. And that kind of sucks, because it stunts his growth as a character.
I'm fresh out
With great power. Ooh. Spider-Man time. Oh, this better not get me copyrighted.
Video, I want to get out of my comfort zone and talk about something that I've rarely talked about, and that's Spider-Man.
Come on, hit me! Hit me!
Specifically, Insomniac Spider-Man, which, hey, I'm not saying the games are bad. I'm just saying I don't like the writing in the second one. Now, we could talk about the Mary Jane section of the game.
If she's low OP, I don't give a shit.
I mean, I'd argue that makes it a little worse from a writing perspective, but whatever. Not the topic of this video. We're talking about the web of over... Wait, how old is Spider-Man nowadays? Damn, 64 years old. Anyway, in all that time, Spider's gone through the ringer in many different ways. From making a deal with the literal devil, had one of his better cartoons canceled, and even had his torch passed numerous times. Oh, and he had that weird romp in Japan that one time, too.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Gee, Spider-Man.
So naturally there have been numerous interpretations of the character, some good, some bad, all subjective material. And I'd argue that, while not the worst, I wasn't a fan of the direction that Insomniac took for the webhead in their part 2 of the game series. Then again, I found the writing in that game to be really lacking, especially in comparison to the first game, and I could go into a lot of that stuff, but since we're talking about the main character, let's focus on that. If there's a word I can use to describe Spider-Man and Peter Parker, it would be diminished. Here comes the people saying that Peter was nerfed when, nah, I don't really agree with that wholesale. I mean, there are one or two instances where I will agree with it.
Oh my god.
Damn fridge. It's more to the point that Peter and Spider-Man feels off. Like in the first game, we had a Spider-Man who had experience with a lot of things. I believe he had about 8 years before the events of the first game, not just with crime fighting, but also juggling personal and superhero life. But in the second game, it doesn't really feel like he has that experience. In the beginning parts of it, when you're fighting Sandman and afterwards, Peter loses his teaching job because, well, he's Spider-Man. He's not going to let a giant sand monster with countless sand clones run amok around the city. Now, why is this bad? Well, throw in the fact he's got Miles Morales, the second Spider-Man, in the game with him, a collaborator and someone who's his student in both school and as Spider-Man. You would think this would be a good thing since Peter and Miles could collaborate with each other to cover if something happened that required one or both of them to leave for the spider duties.
That is a good idea.
Peter was helping Miles while being attacked by Sandman wouldn't even be a lie, since that is what happens effectively.
Mr. Parker? I'm sorry, who's this?
Principal Evans.
Of course! Principal Evans!
Students have evacuated their classroom. Where are you?
Mr. Parker! I just... forgot... something in my car!
What was that?
Nothing! I'm just...
It's a small example since it makes Peter act inexperienced and dumb just so he can lose his job at the beginning of the game. Now, this isn't going on a full deep dive into the game's stories since, well, I don't want this video to be super long, but there are other examples of this in the game. At a later point in the game, when the symbiotes begin to attack the city, possessing people and taking over it, both Spider-Man knew about the weakness that symbiotes have to certain sound frequencies, and Spider-Man has a specialized app that can recreate it. Even if it can't defeat the symbiotes, imagine if tons of people were to blast those kinds of sounds throughout the city at various locations. It could have helped the Spider-Man out. Miles and Peter are capable of recreating the sound via an app, so why not make it a YouTube link so people could play that video that recreates the sound? Especially when you remember, this game, Spider-Man has a social media account that has millions of followers. Or more so when Peter neglects to be more frantic about warning Mary Jane about Harry being possessed by the symbiote and becoming Venom.
MJ.
I didn't get fired from the Bugle. In fact, I think I got a promotion.
Hey, that's what you wanted, right?
Yeah, I thought it was.
Then that's great. Hey, listen. Something's gone wrong with Harry.
What happened?
Well,
Hang on, someone's at the door.
it's kind of hard to explain.
Just say it.
Promise me you'll stay away from him, okay? MJ?
You didn't think to maybe, just maybe, call MJ after learning that Venom escaped, because Peter didn't call Mary Jane in this scene, she called him. What is with this lack of urgency?
What the
Though,
hell?
to be fair, Peter was trapped under some rubble when Venom went berserk and escaped, but we know for a fact that Peter can take calls while web swinging. Why not call MJ while you're tracking Venom, just to be on the safe side in case Venom gets away from you? I talked about how characters should be allowed to make mistakes, and they should. Peter should be allowed to make mistakes. Hell, part of the reason why Peter became Spider-Man in the first place was because he made a massive mistake that took Uncle Ben away from him. But the problem is that it feels so weird that Spider-Man, one who has been shown to be seasoned, someone who has experienced similar things here where his loved ones are in danger and he wouldn't want to make the same mistakes, is being on display. And even more so when you consider in the first game, Peter lost Aunt May. It feels weird to me that he wouldn't want to go the extra mile to protect his friends and family, especially when that extra mile is calling to warn someone. But while we can talk about that,
hell?
let's also talk about the theme of Peter's story, and that would be addiction. This is something that was brought up by both the developers and even the voice actor Yuri Lowenthal.
Yeah!
Oh, cool.
Who won the lottery? I did!
What the hell? Why did it get muted all of a sudden? Same voice act.
Granted, to me, I don't think it did a good job. It feels a bit too rushed, especially when the symbiote storyline. Though that could just be a lack of Venom on a bike for me.
What the hell?
But the biggest issue with Insomniac 2 Spider-Man
Oh, that's
is
funny.
it often plays with a game where the characters are dumbed down for the sake of the plot.
Plan! Keep him busy! I got an idea!
12 seconds later.
Oh, crap.
What was the plan here, Peter? Sandman's kind of impervious.
Impervious? What, is that a good thing?
It feels weird to me, especially since the first game did a good job of showcasing that Peter should learn from his mistakes, and I think it hurts his character in the second game. Even though, despite everything I talked about in this video, this is more or less my own interpretation when it comes to these characters, and I know there are going to be people out there who won't be seeing these things as issues as I do with them, and that's fine. Most of the time, this is the beauty of fiction, is that people will take different interpretations of characters and story beats and see them through their own lenses. And sure, these are my thoughts on these characters, but I know for a
They're
fact
decent
there are
thoughts.
countless other people who will agree or disagree with me on this. Hell, they even come up with different interpretations too, and that's awesome. To me, to ruin a protagonist, there are several ways to go about it, and I hope I conveyed that.
Okay, before I continue, what the hell is the Frank West Spider-Man crossover game? Like, what the hell is that? Like, what the hell is that? I am so confused on what the hell kind of game is that. Please tell me in the comments.
That pretty well in this video. Whether it is to basically misunderstand the character via the writers or repeating mistakes and lessons, there are multiple ways a character can effectively be written poorly. Of course, there are countless ways to go about it too. I only scratched the surface. So let me ask you guys, whose protagonist you believe was ruined and why do you think they were? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed the
I'll have to
video,
think
please
on that. I
consider
don't
leaving a
know.
like, and if you're on mobile, use the hype feature to help push the video into the algorithm more. All this helps me out so much.
Do exactly
And
the
thank you
same
for watching.
for me as well.
I'm MangaKamen, and laters.
Yeah, I will say, this was definitely an interesting video, like, straight up. I will agree, like, some of his points, mainly with Yuma, and definitely with Charlie. I have not watched Shadow of the Boss, but with how terrible their writing is for Has Been Hotel, I have to agree with him there. But the Yuma stuff, I can 100% agree with, because I did watch it, and I'm a huge Yu-Gi-Oh fan. As seen from my Yu-Bell stuff, and my other Yu-Gi-Oh reaction stuff that I did, mainly with him, but I still enjoyed this. It definitely, so I need to keep in mind for when I'm writing my characters. Spoilers for future stuff, but just keep in mind for the future. But for now, thank you all for watching this. I definitely enjoyed this. Until then, I'll see you whatever I post next, I guess. Bye.